Hi, I'm Deb Thomas, Chief Librarian of the Nelson Municipal Library, and I'm here today to talk to you about 5 new books, all about Canadian politics, history, and law. The first book is the most local of the books, and it's about a woman named Helena Gutteridge. It's called The Struggle for Social Justice in British Columbia, Helena Gutteridge, the Unknown Reformer, and it's by Irene Howard. Helena Gutteridge was a socialist and a feminist whose vision helped to shape social reform legislation in British Columbia in the first decades of the 20th century. She was also one of the first women to hold high public office in BC. She was born in England in 1879. A militant suffragist tutored by the Pankhursts, she learned the politics of confrontation early. Emigrating to Vancouver in 1911, she found the suffrage movement there too polite and organized. So she began the BC Women's Suffrage League to help working women fight for the vote. And she kept on organizing. As a journeyman tailor, she was a power in her union local, and as the only woman on the Vancouver Trades and Labor Council, their rebel girl, she championed the rights of workers and organized women to fight for themselves. In the 1930s, as a member of the feisty new political movement, the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation, which is now the NDP, she joined in the struggles of the unemployed for work and wages. Then, in 1937, as the first woman ever elected to Vancouver City Council, she led the fight for low-income housing. As was typical for women of her class and time, Helena did not keep personal records, nor did organizational records exist to any extent. Irene Howard made it her task over a period of years to search out and assemble details of Helena's life and career and to interview old comrades who knew Helena and the turbulent times in which she lived. Herself a miner's daughter, the author brings to her subject an affectionate regard and sympathy qualified by the larger view of the scholar and researcher. The result is a lively biography, shot through with humor and pathos, that pays homage to Helena Gutteridge and to many of the people who have been inspired by a cause and who have taught us about the politics of caring. And I'll close that little segment with a quote from Helena Gutteridge. No matter how busy they may be with their families and homes, women are a part of the larger community. They owe it to themselves to develop their abilities and to work for a better, peaceful world. There's still a lot to be done. And she said that in 1957. And I think it's still true today. The second book is also about Canadian politics and a Canadian political figure. It's about Newfoundland Premier Clyde Wells. Canadians either love him or hate him. But one thing is certain, they know who he is, Clyde Wells, the freight handler's son from rural Newfoundland, who, as Premier of his province, has risen to become one of Canada's most prominent public figures. Now, veteran journalist and author Claire Hoy offers a revealing portrait of the strengths and weaknesses of the man from the rock, the man they call the Anglican bishop. Hoy traces Wells' single-minded climb from humble beginnings to considerable wealth and power, and his sudden elevation to the status of a national hero, or depending on your point of view, national villain, in standing steadfast against the controversial Meech Lake Accord. Yet Canadians know little about the private Clyde Wells, about the sources of his principled political stands. Hoy gets to the man behind the public persona, tracing Wells' life from his childhood in Stephenville Crossing through his university days and training as a lawyer, his early political career in Joey Smallwood's cabinet, his impressive rise as a corporate and constitutional lawyer, his coronation as Newfoundland's liberal leader, and destruction of the 17-year-old Tory regime, and on to his crucial role in the furor surrounding the Meech Lake Accord and ongoing constitutional debates. Besides offering remarkable insights into the history, politics, and social makeup of the province of Newfoundland, Clyde Wells' political biography puts the province's premier front and center on the national stage once again, just as the constitutional wars are reaching a fever pitch in the seemingly endless search for the national reconciliation. Well, the constitutional wars are down from the fever pitch now, so this was written just a little while ago, but it's still fresh. The third book is about a topic that's fairly hot right now, young offenders. A recent article in Chatelaine discussed this very topic and reassured us a bit by saying even though it seems to be on the rise, there's still only 1% of Canada's youth who are actually juvenile offenders. This book is called Apprenticed in Crime. Young Offenders, the Law and Crime in Canada. Investigative reporter Kevin Marin takes us behind the sensational headlines and beyond the statistics to reveal the unsettling reality of today's youth crime wave. In small towns, cities, suburbs, and shopping malls, a disturbing pattern has taken hold. Youthful pranks escalate into wanton acts of destruction. Kids cut class to peddle crack cocaine in the schoolyards. Children in the streets, abandoned by their parents, are drawn into a sordid sociopathic world in which violence is a way of life. Youth gangs roam neighborhoods using intimidation, extortion, and sometimes murder to expand their turf. Faced by the savage and inexplicable crimes of youth, Canadian society is torn between compassion and fear, confusion, and outrage. Though through interviews with young offenders, families, victims, law enforcement officials, and mental health experts, Marin probes the cause of these crimes, focusing on some of the most disturbing cases of recent years. He also examines Canada's Young Offenders Act and the controversy raging around it. Should children who commit heinous crimes be treated as adults? Should we emphasize punishment over treatment, incarceration over rehabilitation? Is our system bound to create a more hardened class of adult criminals? The images Kevin Marin evokes are intense and painful. The questions he raises are sure to provoke heated discussion and debate. But ultimately, he asks a question we as a society and as individuals must answer. What are we doing, and what can we do to ensure that justice, our children, and our future will be served? An important book, worth reading. The fourth book here is called Unholy Alliances. The recent indictment, and it's by Warren Kinsella. The recent indictment of 2 Libyan intelligence officers as the perpetrators of the Lockerbie air disaster once again spotlights that country's terrorism against the West. What is not known, however, is the full range of Libya's covert operations. Unholy Alliances is the first book to reveal the degree of Libyan espionage activities, with particular emphasis on spy networks in Canada. Drawing on several years of investigative research, Warren Kinsella exposes the unholy alliances which Gaddafi has forged with political extremists of both the far right and far left in order to further his decade-long war against Israel, the United States, and other Western nations. Kinsella chillingly details how Canada came to play a central role in Gaddafi's strategy of terror. He examines the place of Libyan front companies in Canada and exposes their relationship with neo-Nazi and other ultra-rightist groups, with former federal and provincial government officials, and ultimately with the now discredited Bank of Credit and Commerce International. Unholy Alliances reads like a techno-thriller. It will surprise and shock all of those who believe Canada has been exempt from the power politics of the Middle East. And last of all is a book called Shadows of War, Faces of Peace. And this book was actually based on a film that was done recently. And it's written by J.L. Granatstein and Douglas Lavender, and the photographs, and there are many photographs inside, it's a beautiful book, are by Boris Spremo. Since 1945, more than 80,000 Canadian servicemen and women have served in peacekeeping operations around the globe. Members of our armed forces have monitored elections, participated in refugee assistance programs, overseen prisoner of war exchanges, and enforced ceasefires. Canada's proud tradition of peacekeeping service continues today with over 2,500 Canadian peacekeepers currently on duty in Central America, the Middle East, Africa, Cyprus, and Yugoslavia. Shadows of War, Faces of Peace is a behind-the-scenes look at the full range of Canada's peacekeeping activities over the years. This important book features historical introductions and first-hand anecdotal accounts of the pressures, joys, and frustrations of peacekeeping. Striking black and white photographs and archival materials complement chapters on peacekeeping in the Middle East, Asia, Africa, Cyprus, and Central America. Dramatic images from the war-torn Yugoslavia are included. Shadows of War, Faces of Peace appears at a time when peacekeepers are needed more than ever. This volume is a stunning tribute to the Canadian men and women who strive to make the world a safer and more peaceful place. And before I leave you today, I want to mention that Ben Wicks, who also has written about history, mostly about England during World War II and just after World War II, will be here in Nelson on April 27th. That's a Tuesday night at the library at 7:30 p.m. and he'll be reading in the program room. So if you'd like to come to that, it's a free reading. It's sponsored by the Canada Council, and it should be a lot of fun. So goodbye for now, and I'll see you next month.